All right, I think we're live. Push one in the chat room if you can hear me. Okay, welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 861, Black Economic Talk. Please hit the like button, come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. There's a doc in the description beneath the video for you to follow along with and reference. If you want to join the panel, there will be a link posted and pinned at the top of the chat. When you click on the link, it's a Zoom link. Make sure you have your Zoom client up to date before joining. Let me get that Zoom link and then we can get started. Just give me a few seconds. All right, let me know when you can see my screen. All right, let's get started. I got a confirmation. Thank you for the confirmation. All right, this is from fastcompany.com. We've talked about this, a few times in 2023, but this is still a conversation in 2024. And I thought, we should actually continue to address this over time, primarily because we seem to be the only ones having this conversation amongst Black male spaces. And I think that if we're going to be the only ones, raising this concern, I think that, it's only right that we continue the conversation ourselves. And this is an op-ed from Fast Company. Why do VCs fund founders like Sam Bankman-Fried and Elizabeth Holmes, but not Black entrepreneurs? We've talked about this, a myriad of times, especially about these two in particular, in relationship to Black entrepreneurs. And Black founders for that matter. And so I want to go over it because I think it's really important that we actually cover all of these points because it seems like everybody's on the same page here, at least when it comes to the Black Brain Trust and some of these other articles. Let me zoom in on this. Sam Bankman-Fried, former founder and CEO of cryptocurrency exchange FTX, was found guilty of wire fraud, conspiracy, and stealing as much as $10 billion in customer money. Elizabeth Holmes, founder of Theranos, is serving an 11-year sentence for fraud and conspiracy over false claims she made to investors about medical devices she said could detect hundreds of diseases with just a few drops of blood. Trevor Milton, founder of Nikola, was convicted of fraud and lying about technical achievements of his electric truck maker company. And Adam Rogas, founder of Rogas, pleaded guilty to securities fraud by faking financial documents to make it seem like his company was making big profits to get more capital from investors. There are actually a lot more names to add to that list, not to mention this all happened in just the past 2 years. In total, these founders who were once considered in the tech industry to be the next Steve Jobs received nearly $7 billion in funding from VCs and investors. Investors backing startup founders who have misled their way to the top is only an illustration of the extreme systemic issues the industry faces. I can barely count on my hands the total number of tech unicorns led by Black founders, and most are founders from Africa, specifically Nigeria. Not all founders are treated the same. You can see it in the funding disparities for African-American founders. Recent Crunchbase data shows that venture capital for Black entrepreneurs plummeted 45% in 2022, amounting to less than 2% of the overall dollars invested. While market conditions changed drastically last year and continued to get worse in 2023, this was still just 2 years on from the bold and lofty pledges many financial institutions made in the wake of George Floyd's murder in 2020. Black and other underrepresented entrepreneurs aren't allowed to even have one toe out of line when scaling. We can't make mistakes, and we are held to different investment standards and subjected to more scrutiny than our counterparts. That limits our budgets, which in turn limits our margins for error and the potential opportunity. Unconscious bias is just a part of the journey. Whether you go to meetings and they think you're the intern or you are checking in at the front desk, they look at you with what are you doing here? I'm not blaming anyone. It's just these individuals aren't used to seeing Black founders walk through their doors that often. I know this firsthand as a Black founder. I launched 3 successful venture-backed tech companies, raising over $70 million, something that is rare in our communities. My first company, Linzer, launched in 2012 and still operates today as a secure data transmission platform where Visa and Intel Capital led investments totaling over $40 million. In 2018, I started Solo Funds along with my co-founder, Travis Holloway, which became the first Black-owned personal finance tech company to reach 1 million registered users. We've raised $30 million in funding in comparison to other fintechs that don't have 1/10 the users or revenue. You would think that even after my success, VCs wouldn't put me under the higher level of scrutiny, but the answer is no. Being a Black founder comes with a ton of challenges that have prevented our startups from scaling and reaching their true potential. Diversity and inclusion and equity problems existed when I started in tech 15 years ago. They might even be worse, especially given the recent number of investment dollars in wealth gap. A lot of investors prioritize the wrong things, like choosing to only support founders who they are comfortable with and fit patterns from Ivy League schools or other known networks. They really step out of that bias. Not only is this discriminatory, but it rewards companies that are on track for excessive growth, which has tempted founders to stretch the truth to get available funding, as they are getting away with it because they can. Many Black entrepreneurs know each other personally or have at least been in the same room on multiple occasions. Most of our investors tend to be from our own communities, removing the potential bias and enabling a true review. But we need to be heard by all as we are solving real-world problems. Plus, it is incredibly difficult to be misleading and purposefully deceive VCs and investors with our products and their capabilities who are doing due diligence 10 times 10. When my company reached 1 million users and became the first Black-owned fintech company to do so, we shared the data with media, investors, and other key stakeholders to prove it. The question we need to be asking is, why do investors continue to fall into the trap of not doing their due diligence before writing a check to a founder who conforms to their biased ideal? It's time for change and putting an end to the pattern matching by VCs. Silicon Valley and major investors need to start doing business differently and expand their thinking by directing funds to those wanting to make positive impact on the world, not trick them. Even if they don't graduate from an Ivy League, look like them, or come from similar backgrounds. Now, we've talked about this a number of times over our existence on YouTube as a channel. And everything Rodney Williams has stated in his op-ed has been stated on this channel, that Black founders, startups are not getting access to the capital that they need in order to scale. And that's why you don't see a whole lot of Black founders. And when you do see them, they are considered to be unicorns, even without $1 billion valuation. Okay. And so if we want to fix the Black community, it's not about just picking up litter and garbage and taking down the graffiti. We also need access to capital, and we're not getting it, primarily because it's going to white founders. As the article stated, that this is a significant problem. $7 billion liquidated from venture capitalists by fraud tech startups and founders. And so this bias that you see in Silicon Valley and in the industry of venture capital, VCs are looking at Black people with suspicion, while, you know, a lot of their money is being lost by their people that look just like them. It's not Black people ripping people off. It's not the Black founders, okay? It sure as hell isn't the Black Brain Trust, because we don't take super chats or cash apps from anybody.
That's for damn sure.
And so I just find this interesting, especially on Martin Luther King Day, when Martin Luther King said, we come in for the bag, but there was no bag for us. Okay. What's going on, Complex?
What's good with it, Mike?
I'm chilling, bro. What's going on with you?
Not much, man. You know, you said this has been something we touched on numerous times. Um,
Did Complex drop out? Is it me? Can anybody hear me?
no, did I drop, dude? Am I okay?
I can hear you now.
Okay, yeah, that is like a dead spot. No, I said like what previously what it was 1%. 1%, I think we got access to in
Less than
terms of
1%.
less than 1%.
0.5%.
I'm sorry, less than 1%. All right. And then there's the points that you touched on. You know, there's no track record of Black founders like selling vaporware and shit to the tune of like, you know, millions of dollars in investment capital, only for like the property to literally just vaporize into the digital ethers, right? Meanwhile, you know, you got guys that really do have like hardware based startups, you know, ourselves over here with Pacific Rides and the micromobility stuff. The brother Paul Francis with Kidget, he's got actual charging station infrastructure. The brother over at Spark Charge. Don't get me started on the guys that are actually hands on. So you can see it, and it's been use case. So you know the argument or the case for investment is literally there, versus people just literally come up with an idea and they go meet up at a little coffee shop. The next thing you know, boom, here's $5 million for you to get started on your little idea.
Yeah, just for operational costs, right? And Black people are always having to run lean because they're coming out of their pockets. So when you ask somebody who grew up Black in a predominantly Black area, like let's say Atlanta, let's say DC, folks are not like coming from these backgrounds where they can tap into their families as immediate angel investors. And so they're not going to get that 10, 15, 20, 25,000, 500. Most Black people don't even have $500 for an emergency in this country. So you're already starting from a deficit to begin with. And so the capital that you need to raise is not immediately there, like the brother in the article is saying, let me make sure I get his name right, Rodney Williams, you know, because people are already looking at you with the side eye, even though your platform, your product, your idea is one that is been very thoroughly vetted to the T, but it doesn't get the capital. And these other jokers who get the capital don't get their products or their platform or their ideas thoroughly vetted at all.
Rule of thumb here is that if you put your own money up, it's going to get vetted. Okay, it's your money that you that you're using. You're going to make sure it gets vetted. Whereas other, you have an idea, people give you money, they start throwing darts at the wall, right, or throwing shit to see what sticks.
Yeah.
Right, they spend the money up trying to figure out something, right? It just start like you get money for an idea versus like getting money for scaling and expansion or deployment. That's two different use cases for investment.
Yeah. And so when people say, well, we got to fix the Black community, how about we start with having access to capital? A lot of people look at DEI and be like, oh, diversity, equity, and inclusion. But this is really a DEI conversation. We're not talking about hiring more Black people. We're not talking about putting on silkscreen T-shirts that says you care about Black lives. We're talking about equitable access to capital. Why is this still a problem in 2024? Why are Black people making up 15, 16, even 19% of the general population, but not getting even 1% of the capital necessary to be involved in the tech industry?
Those numbers don't even that doesn't even logically. There's no logic to that ratio right there.
Yeah. Want to fix the Black community? Open up access to capital. We saw, at least I saw, about a week or so ago, a brother went to Wells Fargo with a 750 credit score and was denied access to a business loan. Okay, this made the news. This is still happening. So it's not about, oh, you got to get your credit score up. No, we already see Black people with 750 and 800 credit scores still being denied. What's the problem? When it comes to student loans, we can, allocate $100,000 in student loans to someone who doesn't even have $100,000 in income or core assets. But when it comes to startups, founders, Black entrepreneurs, suddenly we don't have $100,000. Well, how do you measure whether or not somebody is reliable enough to pay back $100,000 in student loans, but not reliable enough to fund their own, to fund their startup, their startup? Like, how does this happen in this country where we talk about capitalism being the system of of order, right? This sort of economic system of order. But when it comes to actually making sure that Black people can be a part of that system, then suddenly we're like, well, I don't know, man. We got to look at all your books. I got to open up the books here. And so a lot of times Black founders are running lean. Okay, they have to count every single purchase that they make, whether it's ink for a printer or paper for a printer, or how much gas they have to leverage, whether or not they have to catch the bus, or how they're going to pay their staff, and
a controller for a scooter.
Well, how much rent is gonna be, and whether or not you can make rent. We saw this during the pandemic. Many Black businesses failed because they could not. After the shutdown in March and April, when they tried to recover, they were already 2 and 3 months behind. And so they had no other choice but to go out of business because they couldn't get access to PPP loans. Remember all that? But we want to talk about, oh man, you just got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. That's exactly what Black people have been doing. That's exactly what Black people have been doing, pulling themselves up by their bootstraps.
You ain't got no other option but to.
What's been your
Yo.
experience, Complex, in terms of trying to get access to capital?
You know what, man? I would say this, dude. Um, hmm. Let me see. How do we answer that? Shout out to Anti-Grav, man. We were kind of very strategic about how we kind of got to this point. So, we strategically put money in when money needs to get put in, and then we operated the business in such a way where we were able to close on a series of commercial.
Your mic is kind of muffled, Complex.
Wait, how is it now? Damn, dude,
All
I
right,
don't
better.
know what's going on. Okay. So what we were able to do was leverage a series of commercial transactions, right? And then what we did was what each transaction, the preceding transaction was bigger than the last one. And then we were able to scale based on that, right? So we kind of, that was how we sort of did this,
Mhm.
right? It was the initial capital, and then we had to get creative. You get what I'm saying? See, so that's why when you say it's funny that you say pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and I literally liken it to just taking initiative, right? Taking initiative, just saying, well, fuck it, we'll do what we got to do, and we'll
Mhm.
figure out, we'll come up with ways. See, so having knowledge and being able to like see creative ways to do things will take you a long way in lieu of having like direct access to capital. Because God, I wish we had that, but then at the same token, I'm almost kind of like it's a blessing in disguise that we kind of didn't, given how the market, particularly in micromobility, Mike, you know this, has pivoted
Mhm.
away from rideshare and into the consumer market. You already know the consumer market is exploding, right? See, so we actually kind of did things in a way where we're actually in a good position, right? If we could just utilize what it is that we already have on deck and then scale from there. So now we have asset investment. We have a lot of vehicles. So now what we do is we have to now take that and then convert that back into actual money capital, right? So there's a thought process behind all of this, dude. And this is why guys like me smoke as much weed as we do and stress the hell out all the damn time, because this is our money on the line.
So you've never had to sit down with, Silicon Valley venture capitalists to
No,
raise capital.
no, because man, part of it, dude, is like, okay, you get into the startup game, right? So through Bird, and then you learn the ins and outs. Now, from that point, there was things that we started to do that did not require a lot of money, but it did require some capital. So
Mhm.
that came out of pocket and we put that up. And like I said, man, when I worked for Bird, dude, I was doing like on spy mode, dude. I like soaked the whole thing up, and it was like, okay, this is how it's got to go. So it was just a lot of research with Anti-Grav and I, and just very strategic planning. But you got to really know your industry. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of where the Bird experience really gave us a leg up. We learned from the biggest player in the game.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes it, it's no different than the guys who work for a company and then they have a company and they're running it out of their garage type of thing, and they just kind of build it out, and then it gets to a point where they sell it off, or it just becomes a thing. They take on investment. Now it's its own company or what have you, right? We're at that sort of juncture, but I would say overall though, man, we went this route because of the article you just covered. Ain't really that much money on the table for us.
But everybody wants to give Elon Musk, all this credit and be like, oh man, he's just such a dope, dude, man.
Yeah.
I would get down with him if I had the opportunity to. But you gotta understand, Tesla was funded by public dollars. Okay. The federal government wrote a nice big check for this guy. I can guarantee you, if that money that was allocated for Elon Musk, as an example, if that money was going into Black startups, you would see a radical difference in Black communities across the country.
I would argue. I mean, you saw a radical difference in Tesla, right? Where it's humble roots to what it's doing now.
Well, let's take this into consideration, right? the mineral resources needed, the lithium, the cobalt, the coltan,
Mm-hmm.
the majority of that is in a predominantly black country, Congo.
Yes. Yes.
Black people relationship with the continent has never been stronger than it is now. And so when you start talking about the supply chain and you start talking about the business relationships, the business development process,
Mm-hmm.
everybody in the community can eat off of this. From the people who mine it, to the people who ship it, to the people who process it, to the people who package it, to the products that need to be sold, to the retail stores, the retail outlets in these
Distributorship.
black neighbors, in these black communities across the country and on the continent. Everybody can eat, but not everybody got access to the capital. Not everybody got the same time of day. And so
Yeah.
that's the sort of perspective I'm coming here with this. When you start talking about DEI, man, all this hiring people, I'm not talking about that. What does your supply chain look like? What does your portfolio look like? How much investment are you putting into black founders?
I was gonna say that's a very good question, right? So let's just kind of like cover that for just a quick second, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like what you're saying, like basically like the portfolio. Okay. So like let's say you take like a basic micromobility business, and then there's somebody else who, let's just say, through a collective pool on our side, put some money into another person's business that deals in, say, the food services, the ghost kitchens and all that. And then now there's an associated brand slash company, right, that has a tech relation within this portfolio. Then you're going to go over and let's just say we're going to start maybe kicking the tires on, developing our own vehicles that now automatically ports into our platform that we've already have pre-existing, right? So now we're going to create a consumer offshoot of a commercial product. Now, you see how the portfolio is starting to build out. And so we don't really think about these things when it comes to like business and entrepreneurship, partnerships, stuff like that. We've always openly said, hey, listen, we've always been open to partnerships on our side because this is the new automotive car industry, right? See, so before I'm out, I'm trying to make an impact. Listen, I'm not even playing. We're not playing here. Mike is invested in this too, okay? His kit is something to be seen. So all I'm saying is that now is as good a time as any to be creative, right? In lieu of not having the access to the capital, because it's not as if it can't be done. It has to just be done differently. And then what we do is we pressure for more capital investment. We do both.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got rappers running around with 30 different cars. Like you only one person. Why you need to try 30 different cars, man? Like,
And
I'm a
like
car.
thousands of dollars in crusty jewels and bullshit.
Yeah. And so I'm not knocking anybody for having a collection of cars, man. I'm a car enthusiast myself, but I'm just saying that if you take into consideration um the money that has been distributed to uh, these frauds in Silicon Valley, and then to have somebody say, well, I just don't trust black, startups or founders or something like that. But they don't seem to have a problem with buying hip hop, right? They seem to really love hip hop, right? They always want to, buy the mixtape, buy the album, buy the outfits and stuff, Fat Farm and FUBU and whatnot, and copy the swagger. But when it comes to like all in the lingo, right? All the swagger in the lingo. But when it comes to doing business, they're like, oh, well, I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit apprehensive. I think we gotta, come back and talk to us when you got some AI in your portfolio. You're like, AI in my portfolio? I'm just a barbershop, right? I'm not, where does AI fit in my portfolio of a chain of, you know, uh, grocery stores or something like that, or something to that effect, right? I mean, the idea here that you have to add some trending technology, whether it's blockchain or AI or Bitcoin or something like that into your portfolio in order to raise capital, while these other jokers who don't have a functioning product, vaporware, can go to CES and they can be on
Boom.
covers of magazines, and they get all these interviews on Bloomberg and whatnot. No one questions the legitimacy of their product.
I mean, bro, so much of that stuff, Mike, from that video you sent me from CES or from the Micromobility Industries channel, bro, so much of that stuff is literally like a sample variant prototype, and that's all it's ever going to be. It's not going to, a lot of that shit ain't going to make it to the market like that.
Yeah.
It's the whole point is to put it out there to test human preference or taste on all of this type of stuff, right? Where they say consumer feedback. I really wish I was able to go there this year.
What's going on, Prof? What's going on, Luke?
What's good, y'all?
Yeah, put some volume on your mics, please.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, you good, bro? What's going on with y'all?
What's up? What's up? What's up? Yeah, this
Doing,
is a man. I saw the topic, man. I just had to come through. Yeah. I mean, I was cooking. I was in a meeting for a little minute. I think we talked about this before, Mike. So I guess we could. I kind of jump. And I heard the last like 15 minutes y'all were talking about, like you were saying, how people say. Because I ran into that discussion not too long ago. We were talking. I was talking about. I guess it was somebody on YouTube. What's the name? That Saint Center dude. I guess he had a startup or something, and then I was basically saying, well, black startups don't get black. I mean, it just don't get money like that. And then the rebuttal I received was all black folks just try to sell to black folks. That's why nobody invested. And I'm like, dude, like every VC starts with a targeted demographic or audience. It's not nobody. No VC backed startup starts at a global scale off rip. Facebook started with a small pool audience of Harvard leads. Then they branched out to Stanford. Same with Snapchat. Same with Uber. Uber and Lyft started in one area. They did not expand to all of America, all across the world. That was San Francisco. That was the only area of operation. So my point was, I'm like, how can you say they only want to sell to black people? That's why nobody wanted to invest. And I'm like, dude, that's literally what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to target a specific audience. There's not one VC Airbnb. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Airbnb they were at the 2008 Democratic National Convention. I think that's where they first started selling to people the idea and started selling. If I'm not mistaken, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was their target audience because there were so many people coming into that Democratic National Convention that year, and they needed people to have extra. They were selling the couches and spare rooms, and
they actually needed space for themselves, right? They were crashing with other roommates and stuff like that because they couldn't get access to an apartment at the time, and so they themselves saw the value in what they needed, and then created. And then it got to that point of the DNC. I'm just.
Thank you. Yeah. No, thank you. No, I'm glad. No, thanks for the clarification. That's what I'm glad you put it right. So, and I'm glad you. So, this is what I want to say. I talk about this on my channel too, with like programming or anything, any software, any application you want to create. There's something you need to create that's helpful for your group or your community, right? Or like you said, there's value in a problem you need to solve. There's value in it. So, my whole point, I'm with you though, Mike. It's like black VCs are solving problems, and and they shouldn't be shamed because there are problems that can help specifically black people or any group that they're in their vicinity, maybe Latinos, whatever. So I'm with you on that. I don't know, you see all these frauds. It's funny, Mike, and everybody on the panel. They said that if you under 30 on Forbes, if you make Forbes 30 under 30, it's like a 96% chance you're committing fraud. That's kind of crazy.
Hey, wow.
Well, remember Kylie Jenner was on the cover of Forbes herself for being a billionaire. And then it turns out none of that was true.
Yeah, it was all made up, paper inflation, paper type social. They didn't, that's because they never really have a true valuation on social media followings, like and then you're right.
Crypto billionaire.
No, she just had that makeup line. Kylie Jenner
Oh,
had a makeup line, but she had so many followers that they were like calculating it like, oh well, if she sells this amount to this people, then she got to be a billionaire, and she rich with the Kardashians, and but yeah, I don't know. Because I was gonna say this too. I'm gonna wrap this up real quick. I know VCs, if I'm not mistaken, don't they need like a certain amount? I forgot what it's like. The stage A, B. The seed fund, like A, B, C. I
yeah.
think don't
Well,
they,
you
don't they
you
need
start
like a
off you start off with Angel, right? Angel is anywhere between 0 to 25,000, even up to 100,000 now. And then you start going into seed funding. Seed funding can be anywhere between 50 to 500,000. And then you start going into Series A, Series B, Series C, Series D, Series E. And then after that, you should be at your scaled point of return on investment.
That's what I was saying. Because I remember I was reading something the other day. They were talking about the difference between VC and private equity firms. Somebody was like,
Mm-hmm.
they were putting a delineation on the two, and because they were saying basically VCs, they don't really come in and like hostile take over you like private equity firms do, and
Mm-hmm.
then like you said, it has to go through certain phases before you get certain rounds of money. I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic though. I don't want to hog the mic.
No, it's cool, man. What's going on, Prof?
You good. You talking up, like you said, that subject, but it's a continuation, Mike. Like in cybersecurity, man, black people are just a unicorn, right? So it's just continuous. But long story short, in 2005, I started a consulting company with three other black dudes that were a lot older than me. And like you said, we couldn't get funding. We put up our house. We were, making money. We had a couple of contracts with pharmaceutical companies, but you can never kind of get over the hump. Then we ended up being a training organization for younger white people. Like we would get them, train them, then they would leave and make more money. So now you in this kind of like death loop with that. So yeah, that entrepreneurship game is a tough game, but you're correct. If you really want to help the black community, you got to give them funding to capital so they can actually grow large businesses that can employ a large amount of people, at a high level. So
Yeah, I reached out to the SBA last year to ask for the numbers because I know the SBA has the numbers, but they wouldn't give me the numbers at all.
They ain't gonna give you the numbers. Go ahead.
Well, the way they told me is that it's different per state. Like each SBA is kind of state specific. So if the SBA is in Indiana, I can't ask for like a national, database because they don't necessarily have that readily available. It was what I was told. And so they still themselves don't put those numbers out, right? I have yet to see any SBA numbers show that Black people get this significant amount of access to funds, access to capital. And so we have a lot of knowledge gaps and a lot of visibility gaps in regards to how Black people are being funded from an entrepreneurship standpoint. We saw what happened to the Fearless Fund with Rudy Huxtable and what they were doing down in Atlanta. You got jokers, coming in to sabotage that. And no one seems to bat an eye at this. Like, oh, that's just fine. We don't want, Black people getting access to funds and then turn back around and say, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But that's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did.
Hey, you know what?
Why, that's like the ultimate gaslight. I'm sorry, Luke. That is just the ultimate
No,
gaslight.
it is a gaslight. And I don't want to I'm definitely not attributing to the gaslight. I actually want to propose if you guys have you guys are you familiar with DHH David Heinemeier Hansen?
No, I'm not.
You guys familiar? Well, he created the framework Ruby on Rails. You guys familiar with?
Okay, I'm familiar with that.
That's
yeah,
him?
yeah.
I know what that is.
Yeah. He created the framework Ruby on Rails, right? And he speaks at a lot of he actually is against VC. He actually tells entrepreneurs not to do VC funding. So what he did, he worked at a company and he created this. You guys heard, it's called Basecamp. It's a CRM.
Yep.
He created that. He created a CRM called Basecamp.
Yeah.
And he said he did it with no VC funding. He just basically what he was saying, he created it in a way like it was he created it for the company, Just like he created Ruby on Rails for the company. And then he was like, well, more people need a CRM. So he kind of just started selling it, as a SaaS. And because to me, Mike, I'm with you. I don't know, because what I want to say, like with the VC, man, a lot of these startups don't even make it. They don't even get to the, they don't even get really to market. They never really turn a profit. And I'm like, they don't, it's like, sometimes do you really need a 100-person, 200? I understand the message, what you're saying, like, expanding your workforce. But I don't know if we really need
Look,
look at
my
that.
fault.
Sometimes
I'm,
that's
I guess I'm
done
just
for.
fleshing it out. I'm brainstorming with you guys.
no,
right
just
now.
real
No, I'm
quick,
just
Lou.
saying, like,
You
go ahead.
talking software though, Lou. I think software you can bootstrap
Yeah,
with
you're
4
right. I'm
guys,
sorry.
right?
Yeah,
Now, when
that's
you
true.
talking like complex, when you got to build equipment and you got like,
You're right. You're right.
I'm old.
I retract.
I'm old. Right,
You're
right. Because when I got in computers, we were building computers for a pharmaceutical company. We had $1 million worth of motherboards in a big cage just burning up money. Right. So I think that's a little different. Keep going though, Lou. You cooking. That's my only pushback on that.
No, that was a good rebuttal. I ain't even. Yeah, you're right. I got to look outside of just software apps. You're right.
Now I
And I
love
was gonna
software
say,
though,
Lou,
Lou. Keep going. Now, go ahead,
I was just
complex.
going to say one other thing to that is that when you have, see, there's tax incentives, there's various types of things that a company gets if they hire a certain amount of people, technically skilled people in a certain area. Those cities and counties that are going to house those companies, they give a lot of incentives and a lot of advantages to those companies if they hire a lot. So there's that type, there's that, where they overhire. That's what I'm trying to say. There
No,
is a thing.
yeah,
There's a thing
that's what I was getting at. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we all on the same page. So I want to propose this. I mean, is it? I mean, do you guys? I mean, is it? Do you guys think like the government, like like with the SEC, and how they force you to be a accredited investor? So do you think that might deter? I mean, I don't, because I'm saying I know Black people do not have a lot of access to capital. So I'm saying, like, do you think there's like there's guardrails stopping from Black people from receiving VC funding?
Yeah,
You think?
I think so. Long story
Can you
short,
can we
I did
point
a
them
little
like
work.
which can we point them out that way we can like you
Well,
know
I think Mike
I
brought
would
it.
say the SEC in my opinion.
I think it's
But
hidden, Lou. What happens is I did work in Silicon Valley. Mike said it's a pattern match. So if you Mark Zuckerberg and you drop out of Harvard, they'll drop you a check. If PBO come in there looking black and chunky, he ain't getting no money, man. So you got a lot of bias built into that. And when I go into meetings now, I get to sit by the money, not control it. Ain't no Black people in there. So I'm just talking about buying software at a large state level, or just people coming in pitching their software to the state to buy, right? So I think you, like Mike was bringing out, I think you got some biases in there.
And
like,
it's not.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Prof. But it's not just the vernacular, right, of how we, conduct ourselves from a, from a presentation standpoint. Because even Byron Donalds is not Byron Donalds. Byron Allen is being blackballed in the industry, right? And so, and he's the whitest of speakers of Black men that I've ever heard of. Say that again.
no, I said right.
Yeah. No, and they're
Yeah.
treating him like this, and so, but I mean, he's in a different galaxy from what we're talking about. But I'm just saying, Black founders have done everything by the books, and I think that from a DEI standpoint, I think if corporations want to be, if they want to lean into this, one of the ways that they can actually lean in is Microsoft can say, you know what, we're going to donate $1 million of Azure funding or Azure
like cloud storage or hosting or something like whatever.
Yeah, there's a specific term that they use to describe it, but basically give $1 million in resources to Azure. Same thing with like Salesforce, right? Salesforce wants to lean in, they'll give you $1 million in resources, funding for Hyperforce. Yeah, like credits. Yeah, like credits, right? And so, because they can keep track of how much you're utilizing to determine whether or not you really need this much or whether you need more, because the resource utilization also determines how much capital you need too, right? And so, if I need to hire a dozen developers, I also need some analysts too to kind of do some of the legwork too. Because you got to have separation of duties, SOD, right? You can't just have developers writing code and no one's looking over it, right? You need some auditing going on there. And you got to make sure that as Black founders, you're not being ripped off for your ideas, because we know historically Black innovators have been ripped off, whether it's Lewis Lattimore or it's been.
I'm about to say, we just covered that, Mike, with those last few live streams. Yeah.
Yeah, there's many black innovators in the 19th century and the 20th century who've had their ideas ripped from them, their technology ripped from them, and they could not sue because the laws prevented them from suing white men and taking them to court. And so we've lost generational wealth for the last 150 years, not necessarily due to slavery, but because the rules of the game have not been equal.
Bingo.
No, that's like you said, that's 100%.
Yeah, you're not gonna get nothing with no rebuttal out of me. I agree 1,000%.
I didn't know I was gonna be cooking like this, but
No, for real, no.
Nah, because you're right, man. I mean, like we talked about that one day, like, Black people weren't allowed to manifest destiny and stuff like that. We couldn't even fight for our inventions and our copyright and our what do you call it, intellectual property, and now you got trolls and Black people can't do all these good. You got these just anti-Black trolls who just want to like undermine everything Black people do. And it's like you said, you check off the boxes. Black founders and did everything right. They got the paperwork, they got the people, they got the education.
Everything.
Calendly. That's
the Nigerian startup.
Yeah, Calendly.
He well, I thought he was American. Well, I know he is Nigerian. Is he is Calendly in Nigeria? I thought
he's Nigerian American out of Atlanta.
Yeah, he's here.
Gotcha. Yeah, because he went to Georgia Tech or Georgia.
Yeah, I think he went to Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Anyway, so you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I was wondering what was the life cycle of that company? I don't know.
He got turned down many times from what I've read from what I heard in the interview. He got turned down a lot of times before he struck, and he got some angel investment, and then it spun up, and everybody started using it in his circle, and it just started to grow from there. And then I think it was I want to say it was Google or Microsoft that backed him with the big funding. And so,
yeah, because I was gonna say it seemed like out of nowhere everybody was using the. Mike, I think it was Microsoft, because it seemed like the Calendly thing was kind of like the schedule, the email.
It's personal scheduling, because typically when you schedule, like in Microsoft Office, you have to have access to Microsoft Office to schedule. But if you take that scheduling aspect outside of that ecosystem, then everybody can, schedule meetings with each other. And so it made it that much better. I think LinkedIn was one of the investors, if I remember correctly. I think they may have been one of the investors, because a lot of people on LinkedIn started using it. Yeah, they do, but LinkedIn didn't even migrate to Azure, so that should tell you what kind of relationship they have, how strange that is.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah, that is crazy. I thought they were going to go.
That might be kind of hard. I don't know. I guess maybe a migration. I'm just reporting something. Is it kind of hard to? It might be kind of hard to move that many people over, but no, you're right. We're talking about $1 billion company.
Yeah, Microsoft got an army of people they could put on it, and they want to do it because they trying to catch AWS. So they want to get as much people on Azure.
Azure is making some rounds, though. To be honest, I think it's starting to creep up on AWS
because Microsoft Office is what most organizations need, right? So Office 365 in the cloud makes a lot of sense if you're going to try to start that migration process. And then when you start getting to Active Directory, Federated Services (FS) into the cloud, then that becomes the challenge. But that is where most companies are going to land anyway. So that's why Microsoft is going to eventually run laps around Amazon, because Amazon is just not, the premier partner for a lot of organizations.
And
Amazon, they kind of focus on, like you said, like startups and stuff like that. It's kind of like their. But I know they.
Go ahead, Lou.
I was gonna say, 'cause I know they do Snapchat, Apple,
Yeah.
Instagram,
Netflix.
they're kind of more on the Thank you, yep, Netflix, iCloud. Yeah, so you're right, because their market share is more on like the startup-y, VC, like we were just talking about. That's kind of more their target audience is, and like you said, Azure can get mid-level companies, the government, federal government. So yeah.
But the government just put out that $9 billion, and it was only for cloud. It was Amazon, AWS, Google, and Oracle got a piece. And the other part, Mike's 100% correct with the Office 365 and the Active Directory. But people forgot AWS got a 12-year head start before anybody thought the cloud was gonna, take off. Then the other part of that is AWS, and I give them credit for it. They buy a lot of big business, so now they're in competition with people. So they started Prime. So if I'm Netflix, I'm not going to pay you money for Netflix and let you compete against me. They open Whole Foods, so Kroger's on AWS. So they own a lot of businesses that they end up in competition with people that's on their platform. So a lot of people like, man, I'm going to Azure. I'm not going to pay you to actually to compete against me. So I think that's some of AWS's issues too.
Yeah, but in regards to Black founders, it's just one of those things that the average Black business entrepreneur is not even thinking about the big corporations and what role they're going to play in their development of their portfolio. They don't even know. The average Black business doesn't necessarily know, or the Black entrepreneur doesn't necessarily know what resources are available out there. I mean, you have SCORE. The nonprofit that basically helps, businesses, minority businesses get the resources that they need, but that's not enough. When you start talking about $7 to $10 billion liquidated from venture capitalists by these jokers with their vaporware products, and no one bats an eye at this. Now you can argue that, okay, Sam Bankman-Fried, and Elizabeth Holmes, they get criminal sentences and whatnot. That's cool and all, but they serve less time for frauding, venture capitalists than Black people were getting for bags of weed. Like, just think about the significance of this. You got Black people sitting in jail for 10 years for a bag of weed, and a bag of weed is like $10 to $20.
No, that's fine.
No, oh, my bad. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I got a gang of homies, man, that caught a fell over some bullshit. $30 worth of weed.
And you think about how much it costs to lock somebody up rather than that money going back into the community itself. It's just illogical that nonviolent offenders they have this expenditure from the federal and state governments, to lock them up and create more prisons and more prison cells and more infrastructure and more policing and stuff like that. But when it comes to, Black, going back into the community, saying, well, how do we help rebuild the Black community? How about you create more access to capital instead of spending it on frivolous things like, traffic stops and miscellaneous crimes like carrying, possession of marijuana. Like, there's things that can be done, but there are people who are like, well, I don't know if that's a good idea or way of spending money. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? What other ways are you going to spend it?
As opposed to what? Like a fucking crime prevention program? Dude, that is like those are like the biggest waste of money. You want to know what a crime prevention program is? It's something that Mike was just fucking talking about. It's not a series of classes where we sit your ass down and go, crime bad. Good citizen, citizen good, crime bad. It's like with that, you're just blowing money that does not really see a true return.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Too, Elizabeth Holmes, what she did should be some type of crime against humanity. Like, she was lying, saying what was like blood analysis.
They were gonna be able to make up some goop of some fucking clone of your blood through.
They can detect multiple diseases with a drop of blood.
Yep, one drop.
That's what I'm saying. They should have put some type of crime against humanity on her ass or something like that.
She was too cute for that, man. She wasn't gonna get no.
And then did y'all see the documentary? How they was just like the head engineer? She hired someone. He wrote 20,000 lines of code from Microsoft. That's just so much. That's just so much bullshit.
Yeah.
But
Man,
the,
you wrote
but the Indian dude ended up liking her and funded all that stuff. Go ahead. Yeah, so
yeah, man. It's just, it's like I'm with you, Mike. Like you talking about somebody selling weed, a non-violent offense, it really is a commercial, it's really a commercial offense, or really a tax offense. It's not a violent crime.
Well, not even selling weed, Lou. It's more about possession of marijuana,
yeah,
right? This is the
right.
possession of a 50
Well, yeah,
bag.
you're
A
right.
50
Yeah.
bag will get you 10 years back in the 90s or the 80s. Back in the 80s and 90s, a 50 bag of weed. I know people who could smoke a fifth. Okay.
Nice.
That's not a big deal.
Right here, dog.
Yeah, I
they
don't.
could-
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. My bad. Go ahead.
Now you got John Boehner with all his red eyes, man. He's fully invested into the cannabis industry now. But when it comes to black people, I don't know if we should allocate any sort of resources to them. I don't trust them. They like to get high and stuff. Well, you think Boehner's not getting high? Fuck out of here.
Dude,
Yeah, I guess-
all of these tech dudes are on some sort of smart drug,
yeah.
some sort of they're on they're all on something
yeah.
crazy.
Hey, you ain't lying about that. I did kind of find that out. I'll be finding like other program they be doing.
LSD and shit.
Dude, they have these
LSD.
pills that cost like $1,000 a pill, right? It's the stuff that SBF and his ugly chick and the other guy were taking. They were popping these things like crazy, and
SBE?
like if you ever SBEF, G, so so like they were popping these $1,000 a pill smart drugs. Like go look this up. We had Sam Bankman-Fried and like his chick and the guy and the parties that they were raging off of this stuff, dude. Yeah, real talk. $1,000 a pill.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, and then Friedman hit him. They were just robbing folks. I mean, and he implicated all them celebrities in it. Steph Curry, Tom Brady, Shaq, all them folks implicated in the scam.
Right.
Like, and it was for the whole global stage to see. I mean, it's like, and then like you said, then they fixed their mouth to say some bullshit about black startups. Y'all just want to set up black people. Y'all just. And I'm like, all right, man. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. It's like sometimes because it's right. Because you're right. It's like you can't when you're talking from a perspective of speaking for black people. It's like, it's like they want to ignore all the history, ignore everything, ignore the gap. Ignore how they had to basically rig the rules for black people not to win. And, it's like, how can we have way more evidence of that instead of like some bullshit like where they say like try to make like black people just dysfunctional by nature or something like that. And it's like, nah, if that's the case, why do they do so much to stop us? What I'm saying? Why they put so many roadblocks in front of us? That's the case.
Yeah.
If they had it like that, if they was just you know what I'm saying? If they was just way better in all areas and all aspects of life, why did they put so many roadblocks, so many obstacles? Like, used to stop this from manifesting destiny, refuse to give land to former slaves like they did the Anglo-Saxons, refuse to let us settle in the West after the Civil War and during Reconstruction. I mean, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? Why even keep lying about that? You just I'm ranting. Go ahead. Let me pass the mic.
No. It's a good rant because the righteous indignation of this system and the state of things as they are right now and historically is justified, right? But with the exception of the NBA, I think the NBA has done a tremendous job at reinvesting into the black community. I see a lot of the stuff that they do. Jaylen Brown, I saw him with Ice Cube couple of days ago in Boston. 50 Cent was here as well. They doing, they making some major moves and stuff like that. And I think that, NBA should be celebrated for a lot of their participation within the black community. But they're just one organization and they had to go through a lot, man, to go from like, David Stern to what's his name now?
Adam Silver.
To where, to what they're producing now in terms of investment. You got a lot more artists, a lot more people involved in the whole entire supply chain process. You got basketball courts being built and even investments in STEM. I think the NBA has done tremendous amounts of work in donating computers and software, and there's a lot of things that they don't get a lot of credit for, but a lot of organizations would like to do what they're doing, but they can't do it because their biases, like the article is saying, has conflicted their roles. And so it's just frustrating that in 2024 we're still having this conversation, even after George Floyd, even after all of these sort of fake commitments that were made, in the summertime of 2020, where, oh yeah, we're going to be doing this much and doing it, and boosted their portfolios. If they were a publicly traded company, their stock went up. Every company that made a pledge, stock went up. And then we got nothing, and their shareholders made out, like a thief in the night. But we won't talk about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, bro. No, you cooking, man. Yeah, that's what I'm. That's my. That's a lot of my arguments when it comes to like, recreating the economic system per se. Because I'm saying like, people think like when you talk about like socialism and things like that, it's not necessarily about like just giving people money. It's about giving everybody a level, like you said, equity. It's an equity thing. If everybody starts at 0, or everybody starts at 100. At the 100, at the 20-yard line instead of, if you start at the 50-yard line, I'm at the 1-yard line. You're gonna get to the touchdown. You're gonna score a touchdown before me. But if we both start the 50-yard line, all right, now let's go. You know what I'm saying? Now let's see who get it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what it's all about. And it might have to be a, I don't know, maybe it could be like some, because I saw an article the other day, Mike. I was gonna email it to you. They said that Boston or Massachusetts taxed the rich, and they had an extra $1.5 billion to spend.
$2 billion slush fund.
Oh, okay, yeah. And they're gonna redistribute that to community colleges and schools and education and training programs. Everybody. You can be a software engineer, you can be an electrician, everything. You know what I'm saying?
Let them folks in this space they'll tell you both parties are the same.
Oh, Mississippi ain't doing that. I can let you know that right now.
Yeah.
Mississippi starving kids right now.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, we troll a little bit here only because you do still have people in this space talking like this. But Lou pointed out something that I've been saying for quite some time. People are crawling on their knees to get to Massachusetts right now, literally crawling.
I ain't gonna lie. I was looking at some apartments after I read that article, and they were talking about y'all got a electrified bus system and all this stuff, and y'all are recreating strong, like moving some highways around and creating walkable areas. I'm like, oh man, y'all doing this more big.
Yeah. Black. They have the Office of Commission to study the status of Black men and Black boys here. They have a whole lot of things that, that are very progressive. Historically, the state has been progressive. First to abolish slavery, one of the first ones to give sovereignty to Black people who stepped foot in the state during slavery. Charles Sumner was a white abolitionist, who fought on behalf of Black people in Washington, D.C. His blood is still in the Capitol as we speak. They left it there as a reminder to let people know the beating he took, when he wanted to abolish slavery, and his arguments on the floor about the Dred Scott decision, which is what got his brains beaten, would put him out of commission for 4 years up until the Civil War. I don't think people really know the history here. What we talking about here? Let me read this article because Shonda was kind to send this over here. This is from McKenzie.com. Thank you, Shonda, for sending this. How to protect social economic mobility. Let me zoom in on this. From business owners to workers, consumers to producers, and spenders to savers, Black participation is robust in all segments of the U.S. economy. But despite the striving of generations, Black Americans remain systematically limited by racial inequities in the economy. Wright senior partner Shelley Stewart and co-authors. External threats, including climate change and generative AI, could exacerbate pre-existing economic inequities, or with concerted effort, they could create opportunities to address racial gaps. On this day, honoring Martin Luther King Jr.'s impact and legacy, explore these insights on what can be done to protect Black livelihood, well-being, and socioeconomic mobility, and visit the McKenzie Institute for Black Economic Mobility for the latest research on how to empower, inspire, and sustain action that leads to the economic development of Black communities across the globe. Here are a list of articles: impact on climate change on Black populations in the United States, the impact of generative AI on Black communities, examining philanthropic funding for racial equity across the United States, a community Dr. King would be proud of to call home, revitalizing Atlanta's West Side, the state of Black consumers, and opportunity for growth and equity, corporate commitments to racial justice and update, a guide to impact investing in Black economic mobility. Any thoughts on this?
Could you go to that last part? He said, exacerbate. It was exacerbation. Go up a little bit. I don't know really know what to. I mean, I agree. With the sentiment in this article. I just does it have like an action? For the latest research on how to empower, inspire.
These are just a collection of links that they've
produced
work for. Yeah, they produced work for in regards to Martin Luther King's economic plans or aspirations at the time before he died.
Yeah, okay, that's what I want to say. Yeah, when people use MLK, like he just wanted everybody to date white women or something like that. No, that was not the goal. You know what I'm saying? At all. The goal was socioeconomic mobility. The goal was to be, economic revolution. The goal was to be, you can't be, your labor can't be disrespected and discriminated against. A labor type revolution. That's way more powerful than MLK just want us to date white women. No, that's some goofy shine bone bullshit.
These are the same folks that you see with the memes, or not, shouldn't say the memes, but the advertisements on Instagram with Martin Luther King with multiple gold chains and gold teeth, gold fronts, with two with two BBL chicks on the side of him, and city girls party. And whatnot. Yeah.
Oh my God. That just sends me over the edge every time I see that. Go ahead, Complex. That sends me over the edge every time I see that.
I was gonna say I have a trap dream.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that wasn't what it was about. Read some speeches. You know what I'm saying? Look what he was talking about. He got more than I have a dream. He's way more than that.
Yeah. No, it's just that I think that McKenzie puts together some pretty good work. We've used them in the past, to cover some of our content, because it kind of reflects a lot of the ideas that we have. I don't like to copy and paste. We don't want any plagiarism in the manosphere, right? But I think that a lot of what we talk about, other people also along the same have the same thought processes that we have. That white founders are just treated radically different, despite the track record of white founders ripping off venture capitalists. And no one seems to think, that's not that big of a deal. I'll keep investing into white founders. And you scratch your head, you're like, I as a Black person have to show, I have to be 2 times better to get less of the resources. And you're talking about, I believe in equity. You believe in it, but you haven't actually produced anything. It's just one of those things that it's crazy that all of this data is available, whether you're Bank of America or you're JP Morgan or you're BlackRock or any one of these organizations, and you're looking at the numbers and you're saying, well, Black founders only raise less than 1%. What can we do about this? Like, is that not a conversation?
Is that not exactly? I saw a video, Mike. It was about Cadillac. Man, I did not know this. It was saying that the company was a GM. GM owns Cadillac, right?
Yeah.
They were the first to actually sell to Black people and hire Black people. And they were basically saying how it boomed the economy, how it boomed GM, and that's why our older black generations love Cadillacs. And I had no idea that was a story behind Cadillac. I had no idea. And because the owner was like, we got a lot of black people, that can work here, and they can also buy the cars that they're helping manufacture at the same time. And it just created an economic boom in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
That was all, even more than after, after Ford and stuff like that. It boomed GM for sure. You know what I mean? Like, put them up into that stratosphere.
Well, you gotta understand those companies were independent back then. They weren't under GM necessarily.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah. So it was just Cadillac, right? And then they got on GM later. Okay, yeah.
What it was that they sourced components from GM, but they were their own brands. But ultimately, GM swallowed them all up.
Yeah, they got consolidation.
Got consolidated. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
but
no,
yeah, I mean,
you had the Patterson Car Company. It's a black-owned car company.
Oh yeah, I guess that would be a better example. Yeah, that would be a better example.
Yeah, I covered that one in our old world electric vehicle live stream.
If you could put that link in the chat complex, that'd be great.
All right,
too.
let me dig it up.
Yeah, do that, because I was just bringing it up on the fact of like, the black people do have money, black people do have skills, and when people do turn that light bulb on and be like, you know what, maybe we can start, exploring these options with black consumers or black investors and workers, and then you see it always booms.
But the strength of the racial bias, right? The racism that is systemic within the system itself clouds their judgment on economic progress or capitalism as a whole. That's why I don't believe that white people are 100% capitalists. I think that their hatred and disdain for black people collectively makes it difficult for them to actually do business. When you think about Jim Crow, the apartheid system, the idea that they had to have 2 bathrooms, 2 different bus lines, and 2 different, service levels, and you had to go out back to, to get ice slops and water and things like that. You couldn't try on clothes in clothing stores because they didn't want you to. Like, the amount of money that is wasted through apartheid, from a business standpoint, is incredible. That they can, there's no way you're looking at your books and saying, yeah, we did pretty good this quarter. Not as good as you could have had you had been treating people fairly and equally. From a economic standpoint, it just didn't make any sense. And I think the system was eventually going to buckle on itself, even without federal and presidential intervention. I think that the system was going to buckle. It wasn't sustainable at all. You think about Singapore. Singapore was relatively poor after decoupling themselves from the British, and Malaysia. And so they had to start from scratch. Singapore today doesn't look like it did in the 1960s. They had to actually make a lot of technocratic adjustments in order to move their society forward. You think about what the black community has to go through to move forward. A lot of it has to be technocratically solved, but it also requires that the playing field also has to be equal. And so how do you move forward if the rules are not the same? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
You know what? Hey, I know I was on a panel. I'll never forget this. A big gang. He was. We were talking about it one time. He said this, and it's always rang true. He said that if America was all white, America would be 100% socialist nation.
Wait, say that last part.
He said if America was all white, it would be 100% socialist nation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be Norway, Scandinavia, Switzerland. It'd be all the socialist nations, USSR. It would be 100% social. And every time I think about that, I'm like, you know what? Because that's what, because college was free before black people started going in there, right?
Well, the GI Bill. You think about the GI Bill. White, soldiers had access to the GI Bill. White veterans had access to the GI Bill, but black soldiers didn't. You served in the same military though. I'm glad that what's the brother from Georgia? The senator Warnock. I'm glad he has a bill on the table to address the reparations on that aspect. You know, when they talk about Democrats don't do anything for black people, there you go. You know, the amount of money that's been squandered because of that has hurt, you know, a lot of black families, you know, from a generational wealth standpoint and just access to resources. You know, I don't get some of these venture capitalists, you know, who sit in Silicon Valley in their ivory towers, you know, talking about, you know, well, we require you to come back to the office. Come back to the office for what? Like, what do you want these people to be doing? It's really strange, man. Their mindset, because it seems to me that it's pretty blatant, that the data is pretty blatant, you know, that, you know, black people are not getting more than 1% of venture capital, that, you know, the 700 or $500 billion that's out there. They're not getting access to it. So what do you think is going to happen? You're not going to have the diversity in the industry, not from your company, but from an industry standpoint, you're not going to have it. And so why would you think that black people should pull themselves up by their bootstraps? You know, you keep using this bootstrap argument, but you know, it's the gaslighting is pretty pretty blatant that it's racist. You know, you're a racist venture capitalist at the end of the day. And so I think that federal government can play a significant role in creating access to the capital that is necessary. I think that
I agree. I 100% agree.
I think if you could do it for Elon Musk, you could do it for Lockheed Martin and the rest of them. I don't see why it's a problem if black people, black people should be using the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. And that means access to the capital. I think we should be using that as a way to sue. If they could sue us, for I shouldn't say sue us, but some of these equity funds, like the Fearless Fund, with Rudy Huxtable, that we should be countersuing these VCs as well for not, providing access to the same funds, or not even just the VCs, but the financial institutions. Somebody has to be looking at all of this.
Because here's the thing too, Mike. People say a funny thing like capitalism breeds innovation. No, it doesn't. The United States government created the internet, and they tried to sell it to AT&T, and AT&T couldn't figure out a way to make it profitable, right? So what they did, they open sourced it, made it major, allow people to make contributions to the ARPANET, and now we have the internet. The government did that. The federal government did that. And now you got these tech companies that are building on top of the infrastructure that the government created for them to be these Silicon Valley giants. And it's like, I'm with you on that. And even with the remote work, the federal government, I found out the federal government is the biggest remote workforce in America right now.
The government is the biggest employer of black people in the country. That
too, exactly. And there's like a movement going on. I don't know if you guys are aware, but like there's this girl on Twitter, she's like really pushing GovTech, right? And I have to 100% agree, because you're not battling with these H-1B1 visas. You don't have to worry about getting. They're not going to offshore some that stuff to $9 an hour Indians. They're not going to. And they already found Silicon Valley was discriminating against black people. They had to pay like a $25 million. Well, no, not black people. Excuse me, American citizens. They had to pay it's nothing. $25 million is nothing. But they were found guilty of discriminating against American citizens over the H-1B visas. So it's like, yeah, the federal government should step in, like some type of endowment fund. I don't know, some type of fund to where black entrepreneurs can access the capital.
They should have ranked choice in their selection process for doing business with non-white or underrepresented founders. But all of this is under attack, Lou. We've tried all this. All of this is under attack, whether it's Ed Bloom, Bill Ackman, all these other racist white billionaires who have all the money that can go from here to the moon. They're worried about the little bit of money that black people are getting. What's going on here? Like, you have nothing else better to do with your time other than to attack the very vehicles that allow black people to have upward mobility. It doesn't make any sense.
That's why I always fight against that's why I always cook Elon. I always challenge push to the status quo because, like you said, these billionaires are just bullies. You know what I mean? And bullies off some stuff they didn't even really work to gain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's not like they're not they're ingenious, allowed them to be. No, you just had a leg up. You had you inherited billions, millions of dollars, and you might have did something to flip it. But you started. If we started 60 million, we could flip it too. It's hard to lose 60 million here in America. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard. I mean, I'm talking about from like an investment. You know what I mean? Like standing. If you have that type of capital, right? It's hard to lose 50 million if you start out with it, and somebody's teaching you and showing you how to invest it and things like that nature. But
all the black people who didn't pay their taxes and stuff like that end up going to jail. Marilyn Mosby and some of these other ones. The other mayor of Baltimore. Black people go to jail when they don't pay their taxes or the books ain't right. You get these frauds out of Silicon Valley, man, with these fake startups and whatnot, man. No one really is like calling for jail time, man. They just get jail time because that's what the judge, hands off to them. But no one's saying, we got to start scrutinizing these blue-eyed people down there. They're perfectly fine with being ripped off, man, as long as the face is cute, man, and the person looks just like them. Let me go over this really quickly. This is from the National Science Foundation, America's seed fund for the SBIR. Okay, get your high-tech innovation funded for what's next. American Seed Fund, powered by the National Science Foundation, invests up to $2 million in funding for startups that are developing technology. So this goes to back to your point, Lou, about GovTech. Okay, we got funded, and so can your startup. And what are the qualifications? Let's go over this really quickly. Impact, make a difference to people worldwide or revolutionize an industry. We help startups navigate the earliest stages of technology translation. When determining which startups to fund, we look for the following: impact, make a difference to people worldwide or revolutionize an industry. Technological innovation, you need research and development funding to create new products, services, and other scalable solutions based on fundamental science or engineering. National Science Foundation does not fund straightforward engineering or incremental product development tasks. Scale. If you successfully bring your product or service to market, it could form the foundation for a scalable business and make a large impact in your target market. Market pull. You have evidence that your product or service could meet an important unmet need for your customers. Am I eligible? To be eligible for funding, your company must adhere to the following requirements. Must be a small business, fewer than 500 employees, and located in the United States. At least 50% of your company's equity must be owned by U.S. citizens or permanent residents. National Science Foundation does not fund companies that are majority owned by multiple venture capital firms, private equity firms, or hedge funds to participate in SBIR and STTR. All funded work, including work done by consultants and contractors, needs to take place in the United States. The project's principal investigator must be, the tech lead, must be legally employed at least 20 hours a week by the company seeking funding. The PI doesn't need any advanced degrees. The principal investigator needs to commit to at least 1 month, 173 hours of work on a funded project per 6 months of project duration. This sounds good, right? And when you look at what the technology translation is, impact, technological innovation, scale, and market pull, well, Black people have been doing all of this, for a long time without raising any capital, okay? We know what the market is. We know it is, impactful. Everything that we try to do is impactful, but the problem is that this is all convoluted, okay? If I talk to a lot of people on the street, this is convoluted to them. This doesn't even make any sense. Okay? It sounds good. I think the National Science Foundation, has all the right intentions, but this is bureaucratic in a good and a bad way. In a good way, it makes sense because you have a framework in place. In a bad way, because it doesn't make any sense to the average person who just wants to write code. They don't know what all this means and how would you actually make this manifest. And so we need a better vehicle to make this all happen. And I think that these are sort of conversations that we're having on this channel, that we're trying to figure out how to better leverage government as the venture capitalists, the major venture capitalists in Black communities. That's the only way we're ever going to move forward. I don't think that you can move forward with some of these jokers from Silicon Valley. I think that's over and done with at this point. I think in 2024, we should be trying to nail this down as to how we move forward on all of this. There's so many opportunities out here that we can't seem to really get off the ground, primarily because it's really convoluted. I don't understand why it's so difficult, but this is how it is. So, any closing thoughts from you guys?
Yeah, I'll just say this real quick. Yeah, I agree. Silicon Valley, yeah, it's just become a libertarian fascist state at this point. When you look at the federal government, the only they're not seeking a profit, right? They're not, the federal government is not going to just come through and just slash, people and all that stuff like that, major cuts. No, because for them, for the government, the ROI, as you say, is social insurance. It's a better economy and a more equitable society. So that's why, it's definitely should be looked into. So yeah, they're good. Hey, good discussion, man. Great discussion, Mike, Complex, Professor Black Ops. Salute to the chat. I'll catch you guys on the next one, man. Oh, and if you guys, hey, I got a programming channel I'm, working on. So if you guys want to, subscribe to that,
You drop the link in the chat when you get a chance.
Okay, I'll definitely do that. Okay, hey, thanks, Mike. Salute to everybody, man. Y'all have a good day.
Hey, salute, Lou.
All right, you too, man.
Yeah, just kind of picking on back. Like you said, it was a great subject, but too, like you said, incubators. How do we grow it? Like you said, how do we get this stuff less convoluted so we can actually get some real capital at a substantial amount of capital? Like we see a lot of micro loans and small loans, but how do you get the big capital so you can scale up your company, so you can scale up your hiring, that you can actually help the community? Once again, great topic, fellas. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Prof, for joining. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mike, what was that question that you asked? I had a thought on that last question you asked before you said any final thoughts. You said, what is it? I'm trying to remember what the question was. But let me just kind of just throw out an idea. So we have to kind of start looking at ways to pool our own resources and then utilizing well, I don't want to say utilizing platforms like a Start Engine or some of those other crowd what is it called? Crowd equity. Okay, it's not crowdfunding like a GoFundMe, it's crowd equity. See, so people can buy into pieces of companies that are a part of this crowdfunding platform. And when you talked about not having access to like, Black accredited investors and things like that, I think if what we begin to do is to utilize the ones that we do have access to and then create these types of investment ecosystems around them, because you do need these types of people on board in order to create these types of funding platforms. I'm trying to remember what set of SEC regulations crowd equity funding falls under, but it's a different subset of SEC ruling, which enables people to literally set up an account and then buy into tech companies. And they have the portfolios listed up there and all that type of stuff. And it is a way to kind of crowd investment, or however you want to call it. But I think we have to start looking at stuff like that. But with that, man, I'm gonna go ahead and check on out. Peace, y'all.
Indeed, thanks. for joining. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out. Share the video if possible. And hit that notification bell so you get all the